The New York State Library goes back to 1818, one of the first state libraries in the nation, with a very, very proud and long tradition of being able to share resources with everyone. And certainly the Talking Book and Braille Library is, for me, one of the cornerstones, sort of the diamond at the top in terms of saying the commitment that New York makes to its people is a commitment to everyone. If you just take a moment to think about not being able to open that book and read it without some other kind of intervention, you get the idea. This is a pretty amazing service that the government has created and that we've been able to offer here in New York for decades and decades.
Congress annotation.
This is the free service that is offered through the National Library Service for the Blind and the Library of Congress to citizens in all the 50 states. The focus is to provide the chance for people to read who are in some way print disabled, people who can't hold a normal book or read a normal book. They may be blind, they may have other handicaps or disabilities that prevent them from opening a book and using a book as it's intended. So we circulate about 850,000 different items. Represents a huge, vast array of fiction, popular fiction, nonfiction, quotation books, the Holy Bible, you name it. And most of those are either mailed to people, though our movement now is for digital books, or for people to be able to download from their home computer or a home device a full book or a magazine for them to use at home. We serve individuals. About 15,000 people are regularly part of our clientele. And then we serve people through about 3,000 institutions, nursing homes, hospitals, daycare centers, other places where people in the community gather to meet. And in many of those places we have deposits of material, and those might be talking books or books in Braille, but also where we get people connected to our service. The network that we're part of includes all the states. Every state in the Union has at least one talking book library. And the design obviously is to be sure that everywhere this idea of equitable access and equal access to materials is fulfilled. In New York, the sort of point of entry to the talking book and Braille library world is your local library. And you can go into any public library. You can go into most school libraries and even academic libraries in New York. And if you're in some way print disabled and you need help being able to read print materials or hear or listen to print materials, those libraries make a connection to us and we make arrangements for people to have improved access. The service is one that's in significant transition from books that used to be recorded pretty much on tape, the old cassette tape idea, to using the latest in digital technology. And we're very excited about this transition because it makes it faster, cheaper, more efficient to get good quality reading materials to people when they need it. This service obviously is designed for the government to be sure that people have equitable access to these materials. And in the spirit of all the public libraries in this country, and we have over 15,000 libraries, we have more public libraries than McDonald's, we have a chance with a service like this to be sure that everyone has a chance to be well-informed citizens, which obviously is most critical, but also to enjoy the rewards of being able to read great novels and great literature and be part of the world around them. We call ourselves a Talking Book and Braille Library. We could probably call ourselves a Talking Book Library, in part because Braille is not as popular as it used to be. Braille is expensive to produce, uses a lot of paper. It is a paper-based technology. Bartlett's Familiar Quotation. Actually, new edition just came out, I think, in the past couple of weeks. Pretty amazing and pretty important reference tool. In Braille, 107 volumes. 107 volumes. I don't know how many 20 or 30 shelves filled with the volumes of what most people know as one pretty chunky volume, and in digital form, a little stick about that big. The economy around Braille is, I think, pushing a lot of people to think about all the other forms, particularly the digital forms that are now available. And while many people still speak Braille, use Braille, create Braille, have the printers and the sort of the punches that are part of the Braille language, we're seeing, I think, many younger readers not use Braille, but rather use, obviously, all the other audio and connective forms that there are in terms of communication. So many of the handheld devices, many of them have speaking capabilities and audio capabilities now. And I'm not going to make any predictions about Braille, but I think we're seeing less and less of it. It's sort of interesting as we talk about the transition of Braille and the movement from Braille to other forms. One of our challenges is that we have really many transitions in the world of talking books. The transition from Braille to all the other forms, the transition from the old cassette tapes, which is a technology that the National Library Service for the Blind will stop completely at the beginning of next year. They won't be producing anything in those tape forms. That'll be gone. And in most people's personal lives, the cassette tape has been gone for a few years. So we're a little bit behind the curve there. Obviously, the movement then to digital form, and that comes in several different forms, but generally a little magic stick. And I'm guessing that will be changing soon as well, just because things are getting smaller, more compartmentalized, cheaper to produce, and faster to produce. And we want to be sure that people who are print disabled get their books, you know, right then and there. We don't want people to have to wait. So we are transitioning along with the National Library Service for the Blind in all the areas of our collection. You see behind me all these blue cases. These are digital materials. But if you look around, you see a lot of cases in green. Those are often filled with cassette materials that will be obsolete. Our challenge, and at the federal level the challenge is, how many of these older materials do we need to reconfigure into new formats so that they will be available for people? And how long can we afford to operate in several different modes? Sometimes, particularly older people find themselves, once they learn a particular technology, a particular piece of machinery, they want to stick with it because they understand it. And so we try to be sensitive to individual needs, but at the same time, our goal is to get as much material available to as many people at the lowest possible cost, as quickly as we possibly can. The structure of the talking book libraries in the National Library Service for the Blind is a structure based on federal statute that permits the National Library Service, which is part of the Library of Congress, to secure copyright support, to enable them to create talking books from books that would otherwise be sold as audiobooks. So the federal government has devised an arrangement that is part of the world of copyright, so that people who create books, whether they're in printed form or in audio form, retain their rights of ownership in our world of copyright. But basically, with some fees and some other relationships, enable the government to invest additional resources to convert those books into talking books that then are available through the Talking Book and Braille Library. In some cases, not always, it's the same book. And it may even be the same narration that's used. In many, many cases, the books that are part of the Talking Book and Braille Library are books that are not available in the marketplace as audiobooks. And even though a lot of our materials are very, very popular things, the bestsellers, the New York Times bestsellers, of course, there sometimes is a lag in terms of their availability, just because the marketplace sort of dictates that the paying customers are out there first. And those are the audiobooks that you might buy online or from your favorite bookseller. Talking books, if you were to listen to any of the ones that we have, they're extremely professionally done. The periodicals that people can get as part of the Talking Book and Braille Library, also, the narrators are skilled. Even though many of them might be volunteers, they're very skilled narrators. And if you love any kind of audiobook, you would be very attracted to these materials. But the audience is limited. And obviously, I think most people would understand that if these were widely available and they're available for free, the people who have created them would not get the appropriate return on their creative energy. So we're very respectful and very thoughtful to be sure that people qualify for the service. But we go to great lengths to be sure that if people need this service, they can get it.
Yogi imparts to us his one-of-a-kind wisdom and famously quirky humor, illuminating the subtle truths at work in our lives.
It is one of those remarkable services that the government has designed and funded in order to do what our democracy needs to do, and that is to be sure that, again, everyone has that access to be well-informed citizens and to be able to fully participate in all the things that our democracy has to offer.